What's up, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Between the Cons.
Between the Cons.
My name is Chris, and with me today, the Outlaw Steve Jr. I don't know why I introduced you like a wrestler just now.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's me. I'm overdramatic. Hi, I'm the Outlaw Steve Jr.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We've got some Topic Thunder going on here in a few minutes. But first, thanks to everybody that's hit us up on the internet this week. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever suits your social media fancy. That's not what it's called. Anyways, Topic Thunder for today. We're going to be talking about are remakes culturally worthwhile? You guys voted for it, so here it is. If you didn't vote for it or didn't know that was a thing, check out our Facebook and Twitter. On Mondays at noon Central, we post a poll every week, 3 topics that you get to vote on. If you don't like what you see, hit us up at betweenthecons.com/contact, and you can submit your own idea, and we'll include it in the next week's poll, assuming we don't get overloaded with ideas and assuming they're clean and relevant. So, all of that being said, here we go with Topic Thunder.
All right, guys, before we get started, this is a question. Are remakes culturally worthwhile? We are talking specifically about film to film, that is a movie that is being remade as another movie. It would be really easy to lump in like Lemony Snicket's Series of Unfortunate Events, which is happening right now on Netflix, and saying, well, it's obviously better than the movie, but that's kind of cross-form, and we don't want to talk about it. We want to make sure everything is kind of on an even playing field for this. And because of that, we are purposely omitting cross-cultural remakes. That is to say, we will not be talking about any movies that were remade as American movies that were at one point from different cultures.
Old Boy, Departed, Magnificent Seven, Seven Samurai, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Ringu, The Ring.
Yeah.
Anything like that, we're not talking about it. Just to make sure that we're talking solely about our own American film culture. Because let's be honest, Asian film culture has its own twists and turns. Ip Man is going to be way different than 47 Ronin, which we saw a few summers ago.
Which was actually pretty dope. Side note.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
It was a slow burn, but I knew it was going to be, so I was ready for it. Also, Keanu Reeves can't really do anything but a slow burn or a total action flick. Or it comes out like that weird Eli Roth movie that came out just recently.
Hostel.
Was it Eli Roth?
I don't know.
Now I don't know. All right, guys. So, remakes, they're always around, aren't they? We either have two things, the remake or the sequel, which the sequel will be a totally different podcast.
Yes, it will.
But here's what we're thinking. We want to kind of go through and quantify what is good and what is bad as far as remakes go. And we will disclaim that all things taste are objective. We are not here to put words in your mouth, and we are not here to let you put your fist in our mouth. Please don't send us threats because we dissed Italian Job, which is your favorite movie or whatever. With Jason Statham and Seth Green. Instead of...
I love that you picked two of the not prime characters.
those are, when I watch Italian Job, Seth Green is the only character to me. Like I don't know what it is about him being in a movie that makes me just like gaga. I think he's so funny, and like he's just got his own,
perfect.
He's got his own screen presence that's nothing like anybody else that's ever in the same movie. Like that movie, like the movie Sex Drive. We talk about it all the time, and it had the big
Clark,
younger guy from
Duncan Clark.
Yeah.
There's a first name in there.
Oliver Duncan Clark.
No.
But from Hot Tub Time Machine, he was also in Kick-Ass 2, I believe.
Also The Office, the final season.
Oh yeah, he was on the final season.
Clark Duke. It's not even Duncan Clark. It's Clark Duke.
Okay, Clark Duke.
I knew it was going to come to me.
So that movie, Seth Green, he totally
stole the show.
Stole the whole movie. And he had maybe 15 minutes total screen time. So, I mean, if you haven't seen Sex Drive, it's not a remake, so it doesn't fall into this. And it is a bad movie, but by all means, go watch it. What's his name? James Marsden is in it. And
he totally is.
A few other no names that I don't remember anybody else specific. Oh, Fall Out Boy is in it. Anyway, digressing.
A few no names. Oh, right, and Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, well, Seth Green talks about he walks up to Pete Wentz at the end, and it was right around the time he had that photo scandal where he photofied his junk,
his business,
and it got out on the internet. Yeah, and so it was like, hey, what's up? I saw your junk on the internet. It's really funny. Because he's Amish the whole time. Watch the movie. It's a fun time. You're not going to have a good time watching it. So anyway, remakes. Here we go. Remakes are, for me, good for these reasons. For the advancement of storytelling, this is the highbrow version of what I just said. For the advancement of storytelling through the reasonable implementation of three-dimensional character study. What we mean by three-dimensional character study is this. Characters now in film, because film is still a very young art as opposed to other arts. Music and physical art, dancing, all those types of art have been around for thousands of years. Film, not so much. Its dad, theater, has been around for a while. But even then, theater is younger than art and music and dancing. So the two, where they are blood relative, are relatively younger.
Ew.
All right, so anyway, three-dimensional character study. James Bond, as we know him classically, that is Sean Connery, Tim Dalton, Roger Moore.
Why is Timothy Dalton the second name that comes out of your mouth?
Because even though he did whatever, two movie, it's one of my favorite. Oh, he did two? I feel like he's one of the better Bonds. I mean, I think
fair enough.
Sean Connery and Tim Dalton are the best Bonds. I think Roger Moore takes like a really close third place. And then Pierce Brosnan, and then they just kind of keep going down after that. Is it Daniel Craig? Is he the only one left?
But there's
two more.
Pierce Brosnan as GoldenEye come in higher than Pierce Brosnan as all of the other movies?
What is it? Die Another Day? Yeah, for sure. GoldenEye is definitely.
Yeah, there are like a bajillion of them.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes, sir.
Not a good character.
Digressing. Oh, George Lazenby. That was the other one I was thinking of. He was the other film.
James Bond, not a good character.
Well, he wasn't. Daniel Craig is doing his best to progress the character now, but when that character was conceived, it was conceived in a time where espionage television was really big, and so they started to put, I mean, you're talking Mission Impossible, and it comes from the books James Bond, but I think it's a little bit dumbed down from where he is in the books because they're action movies and they were supposed to be highbrow, fancy action movies for the new age, and they started in like the 50s, 60s, as far as like the big screen goes.
Right.
So you have this character who is kind of a very young character in the eyes of film history, and he has been used as this like beta test almost for 70 years. So he is now like a little outdated because he's so inundated with having to be a spy who loves fast women and cars and money, and he's like kind of a karate chopping, kicking, he's kind of a badass guy. So I was trying to dance around it. Okay, so that's kind of point one. Keep that in mind. John Wayne, point two, is no longer the highest notch of acting. At one point, John Wayne was considered such a good actor. He, if you're not familiar with John Wayne is a Western actor, very famous, also very famous for his World War and I believe Civil War films.
I think he still is the highest notch for most popular actor with a speech impediment. I think he still takes the cake on that.
What about Gerard Butler? He was Leonidas. I am Leonidas.
This is Sparta.
He's a nice person. Let's talk about something else. So
we can do whatever you want.
All right, so whoa, partner, I guess John Wayne is no longer the highest notch on the list. So at one point, John Wayne was considered such a highbrow good actor that he was considered famously and poorly to play Genghis Khan, the Mongolian, in a film called The Conqueror, which came out in the mid 50s. I believe it was 54. 56. So
bad choice.
Yeah, it's not that it was a bad choice at the time.
Sure.
Because the cultural sensationalism around because people had been doing that for years in theater.
Right.
Years. And now it's a big deal because socially and politically we're so young that people don't know how to deal with, let's say, a white person playing a Mongolian person.
Yeah.
But that had been a thing in theater for, a couple thousand years. Like, if you're in a play in Greece in 10 AD, like, there aren't airplanes. Like, these people aren't going to get to where you are,
right.
Unless they're traveling by ship, and most of them, they're not going to come by ship to perform in your Grecian version of whatever play you're doing. House of the Rising Sun is not a play. So keeping in mind those two things, much like music and art evolves, so does film. So those two benchmarks are no longer benchmarks. We have people who are better than John Wayne now. I know that's hard to believe. And we have characters that are deeper and more complex than James Bond. And so if we can take old films into a new age with this three-dimensional character study kind of ideal that's been taught through the last 30 years in theater and in film, then we start to have better versions of characters that we know and love from days of old. And that brings me to the updated actors and perspectives. When you watch a theater production, let's put it this way. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett is one of my all-time favorite shows. I think Chris 2 would agree with me. It's a great show. He was actually in it when I directed it in college. I love it. So there have been some casts for that show, and that show's not old. But Robin Williams and Steve Martin played the main characters in one. Ian McKellen and
Patrick Stewart.
Jean-Luc Picard. Patrick Stewart, thank you. Let's see. Nathan Lane and John Goodman were in an iteration. So you have all these and you have people who they collect the stubs. It's like, I've seen Waiting for Godot like this. I've seen it like this. I've seen it like this. And nobody's like, well, the remake isn't as good as and the original one when he first started, it's not as good as and then this is it's kind of a moot point because in theater that's done. It's
right.
It's
always played by
and it's done
different.
and it's done on a big scale. Like on Broadway, these people played it, these people played it, these people played it. So I kind of view watching a remake as watching, like a film remake, as watching a
theatrical
updated version of a theater show. Yeah, because that's what it is. It's inherently theatrical drama, so that puts it into kind of the liturgy of the whole theatrical experience, and I think that's how it should be viewed. And I think those are as long as you're informing your update by being able to use a new perspective to deepen the characters and do stuff like that, and not just updating because of a fancy actor, which we'll get to later. Next, we have the furthering of the historical value of the film. And Chris, would you take that one?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that is great about remakes is, as we kind of from a history learning educational standpoint, we find out more about cultures, about time periods, about whatever through advanced technology that allows us to dig stuff up and preserve or whatever. We learn cooler stuff, and I think that those are great reasons to create more historically accurate remakes. So like a lot of the movies about that take place in the American West or ancient culture, or like, as bad as this is gonna make me sound, like dinosaurs and stuff like that, like, though those movies might not be great, like they had good intention of, like, you see a dinosaur movie and sure, it's not about like, well, actually the movie that came out recently that's just called Dinosaur, it was a movie, it wasn't a remake, but like it's a good example of what I'm talking about, of a movie coming out to kind of educate to a certain extent that time period. And had someone tried to make that movie in like the 40s, one, it would have been the most impressive act of cosplay ever. Two, it would have not been as good as it, not as accurate as it would be today. So I think that that's a huge thing, and that's a huge thing for me too, is knowing your writers know what they're talking about. Because when you're sitting in a movie and they say something and you're just like, nope, like whether or not they had zippers in the 1300s on their pants, like that's dumb to get all up in arms about that.
Right.
To an extent, but I think like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, like I think about those kinds of things. Like Pirates of the Caribbean movies aren't a remake per se, but there have been tons of movies about pirates, and it creates a more accurate depiction of the East India Trading Company. And then we have the TV show like Taboo, that not even a decade later presents so much more information about the East India Trading Company because we've found out so much more about it. So all of those, or none of those, are remakes, because we're going to talk about the stuff that fall into this category in a few minutes once we get into goods and bads. But I think those things are huge, especially for a lot of viewers, myself included, just to further the historical value of the film.
Here's the interesting thing. If a film was made between December 2012 and April 2015 about dinosaurs, it would not have included the Brontosaurus, because in December, late November, December of 2012, enough archaeologists, anthropologists, what have you, paleontologists got together and decided that there wasn't conclusive evidence enough for the Brontosaurus to have actually ever been considered alive. And then just recently, 2 years ago in April, they said, you know, we've found more evidence. It's a real thing. So those 2.5 years, if you put out a dinosaur movie, it wouldn't have a Brontosaurus in it. So if you made a dinosaur movie between those 2 years, it was horrifically inaccurate by current scientific standards.
Right.
Keeping in mind that the American Old West was a period of time that lasted somewhere around 50 years.
We have lifespan.
Yeah.
During that time.
Considerably less of one lifespan of the time. I think it was like 32 was how old you live to be. But in the Old West, in more Neapolitan areas, but you know, in that time, you like we thought so many things, and like we are still uncovering like diaries and journals and stuff like that of prairies and prairie settlers and, you know, saloon owners and stuff like that who can kind of more properly detail people like Billy the Kid, like Jesse James, like, you know, all these great like classic Western heroes. That was all in quotation marks for those of you at home. But we're now finding out more things that are closer to what the truth is for these characters. And so I think in 15 years, if they reapproach the Jesse James film that starred Brad Pitt, like they're going to have some more advanced actors. I think Brad Pitt's really great. Not trying to say anything bad about Brad Pitt, but you know, we're going to have better information. I think that's how we keep those movies rolling.
Yeah.
So
I think the last good reason of making a remake is for technological advances. I wanted to take this from Steven to talk about because I had a really interesting situation come up. Last Wednesday, I host trivia every Wednesday night. Last Wednesday I hosted, and one of the ladies that works at Moe's Barbecue brought her 14-year-old son. And he sat with me because she was busy working, and I just kind of sit there and read questions into a microphone. So he sat with me, and we were talking about some of the questions that came up, like while everybody was answering or whatever. And we started talking about movies, and he made a comment about how he doesn't like movies from the late 90s, early 2000s because it's all CG and the CG is all bad. And I told him, I was like, it's really funny that you say that because I actually went back and watched the Matrix trilogy like not even 3 months ago. And even the first Matrix movie, though still great, there are points where the CG is just like, bruh, that's rough. But then I think back to like where I was in my head in 99 when The Matrix came out, and like that was a mind-blowing cinematic experience. It was so good. It was so advanced. So I think better cameras. I mean, technology is always advancing, so better cameras, better opportunities for sound, and better sound effects, better visual effects. Those are all great reasons. Like The Matrix, do I want to see it remade? No, I do not.
Right.
But when we get to a point where we have movies that are, quote, classics that are physically painful to watch because of how bad they look, how bad they sound, how grainy they are, etc., then it's time for a remake. And I think that would be acceptable, as long as there weren't too many liberties taken on the front of the script.
Yeah, which we'll talk about a very specific instance of that later. But my favorite instance of that is, and it's because this movie can never be remade as it is, but was the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. Because if you go back and you watch that movie now, 30 minutes of that movie are almost totally unintelligible fighting between cell shaded shapes that it's totally incongruent. And we were talking about it at WizardCon in New Orleans 2 weekends ago.
Yep.
About how because MF Dane was there and a couple of our other friends, and we were talking about how a man in a suit dressed up can still look better than CGI from X amount of years ago, like stating it at any point in history. There's a really, I believe it's Ben-Hur or 10 Commandments. They had to go through a massive cleanup process in the 70s and 80s because they started, as the film was being transposed onto newer, onto VHS and further, everything kept turning blue. All the actors, like around their edges, they were turning this really vibrant blue color, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And it's because they didn't use green screen back then. They used blue screen, and the blue had tainted the cools in the shadows. And so as the technology advanced, those cools in the shadows started to pop a little bit more, and it turned everybody blue. And so you gotta think like, Ramses the Third, and he's, he looks like he's from planet
Avatar
Naboo or something. Yeah, exactly. That's a better, whatever.
Still trying to forget.
Still trying to forget. But yeah, definitely the better cameras, better special effects, better sound. Even the way that we are able to mobilize those things is better. We're not on sound stages anymore. We're in actual places. It's great. And so lastly, in our remakes are good for section, labor of love. And this is something being a labor of love is a giant double-edged sword.
Yes.
Because you can get...
Yes.
There is a man who's very pretty and maybe not the best actor in the world, but he was shooting a movie where he was playing a member of the Justice League, and while he was shooting that, he was writing a script that would break all the rules about a team member from the X-Force. And that's Ryan Reynolds. As in his tenure as Green Lantern, he was putting together the script for Deadpool, and that movie, it broke the system. R-rated movies are not supposed to make that much money. They're not supposed to be that highly rated, and he killed it, especially for a comic book movie.
And he is moving for an Oscar right now.
Yeah, as well he should. Posture all day long. But there's another guy, and he is killing it right now also. His name is Damien Chazelle, and if you don't know who he is, he's the guy who put La La Land into the conversation. He's the director and writer for La La Land. when he was shopping studios, he didn't start with La La Land because he didn't think people would pick it up. He started with Whiplash, which Whiplash was a much lower budget movie. This is all, you can find his Hollywood Reporter interview. This is all from his own mouth. It's a much lower budget movie, and it could be done simpler and easier with less sets. And he thought it was good enough to get him to the point where he could give La La Land everything it needed. So he sold in his mind, crappier movie.
Oscar-winning movie so that he could go on to win how many Golden Globes? 7.
Did La La Land win?
7. Every single one it was nominated for.
Yeah. It's a spectacular film. He is a spectacular director. He has a spectacular perspective. And so when you find those cases, things go really great. And this is our kind of short list of remakes that we love from
the last 15 years.
From the last 20, 15 years. And they are as follows. Magnificent Seven. You, of course, have the one that just came out with Denzel Washington and
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt. And you have that's the remake of the Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, James Coburn, Eli Wallach.
Steven, you can do this all day.
Then you have Ocean's 11, which I believe we talked about a little bit last episode. But Ocean's 11, which had Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and that was a remake of an old Rat Pack movie with Sammy Davis Jr., man, and Dean Martin and
Frank Sinatra.
What, Sammy Davis Jr., man.
Yeah, and one thing about Ocean's 11, just really quick, is the original Ocean's 11 is very akin to a lot of the popular but I'm putting all of this in air quotes, popular summer blockbusters that we're getting now, where it's a movie starring the people that you want to see in movies just for the sake of you seeing those people in movies. The original Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack, compared to the Ocean's 11 with George Clooney and Matt Damon and Don Cheadle, they are two completely different movies. The first one is about a bunch of dudes who just going gambling, and next thing you know, they knock off a handful of casinos in Vegas. Ocean's 11,
and it's a musical too. For all intents and purposes,
to an extent,
it has
it has musical numbers. Yeah, but it's also the Rat Pack. But Ocean's 11 with I almost said with Danny Ocean and Matt Damon, with George Clooney and Matt Damon and those folks, it is a heist thriller, which is exactly what it is, whether you like it or not. It's a heist thriller, and it's so much more different. It doesn't throw the plot twist at you until the very end, where the original is just kind of this is what we're gonna do, and then they do it just like they said they were gonna do, and there's no questions. It's just a good time. So probably on this list, my favorite of all of the remakes, because I love heist movies, Pineapple.
You can't say Pineapple.
In Tropic Thunder.
True. So another one on our list was True Grit. It was a old John Wayne movie. It got remade by the Coen brothers, I believe, and it was Jeff Bridges.
Yep.
Who played Rooster. Fantastic, iconic character, and they both killed it. This one's kind of a weirder one, but Judge Dredd, starring Sylvester Stallone, is kind of a cult classic. It's not really a highly favored movie, but Carl Urban really kicked it out of the park when he did it a few years ago in the iteration solely called Dredd. And then we, of course, have Italian Job.
Same scenario.
Yeah, Italian Job. I mean, the original has Michael Caine,
which
I probably shouldn't have left my cocaine everywhere. My cocaine. Hi, I'm Michael Caine. And then we're just going to do this for the rest of the episode.
We're just going to talk like this. Master Wayne.
Michael Caine.
And Italian Job, if you like heist movies, it's the same way. The original, it's a movie that has Michael Caine just because it has Michael Caine. Despite what he looks like now, he was a fantastically good-looking British man in his youth. Still a British man in his eld.
You might have noticed.
But it's the same thing. It very loosely follows the plot of the original. The end of the original does have like a really intense, way longer than it needs to be, like puckered butthole scene. So it's a good time. Just to be clear, the scene is not of a puckered butthole.
Starting to sound like the original Death Race.
Yes.
Okay, so and we love those movies and we love those things and all those things, the trendy or the updated actors, the historical value, three-dimensional character, tech advances, all those things serving a script and a film can make a great remake.
Yes.
But remakes are super easy to mess up. We see this a lot. We see this with Transformers, which is a remake into live action, which is tough. Some things aren't made for live action.
Yep.
Which you see with cult classics. Cult classics specifically should not be remade, period, ever, period. We were just talking about Death Race 3000, David Carradine and Sly Stallone also. And that movie, in its heyday, was this iconic, very sexual, very important movie about standing up for what you believe in to a very specific group of people.
2000.
Sorry, 2000. To a very specific group of people. So when you get Jason Statham to come in and make it this like kind of summer blockbuster,
it's awesome.
Fun. It's fun because it's like Twisted Metal or something.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody wants that to be a thing. Like we'll watch it, but you don't leave the theater going, man, that enriched me in some way.
Right.
It's just like, man, that wasn't a total waste of $20. Provided you have a date. If you don't have a date, I can't help you there. But these are the things, kind of a short list of things that we have devised that will ruin your remake. And here we go.
Monies.
Doing any... Oh, yeah. I was going to do this one first. You'll take that one in a second. Doing anything, like we said before, for the sake of a technical advance is the worst way to do your remake. That's something that I feel like the Transformers people came into. They saw that you can make big robots out of CGI. And we had movies that maybe weren't so good. The first Transformer movie, I'll accept an argument that it was okay. I saw it twice in the theater. I didn't dislike it at the time. It's the anthology of what's happened in those movies that have made them worse and worse, and I'll accept that argument. But those movies maybe shouldn't have come to live action in the first place. And it certainly shouldn't have come to live action before Shia LaBeouf kind of hit his stride as an actor. He was just coming out of being a kid, like a child actor. He was still real, what do you call it? Cheesy. He was kind of a cheesy actor. But yeah, just because you have better cameras, just because you have Rumble Cam, just because you have special effects that rival everything that has ever been made, doesn't mean you should do it. Okay, so our prime example of this is going to be Ray Harryhausen's masterpiece, Clash of the Titans from 1981. It was a really brilliant... If you're not aware of Ray Harryhausen, he is a stop-motion god. he pioneered it in so many different ways. And I believe it was in the 60s, Jason and the Argonauts, which is highly revered. He did the original Mighty Joe Young stuff. He was It Came From Beneath the Sea, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, like all these really great movies of the 40s and 50s that deal with special effects in a very practical new way, which was part of the legacy of practical effects for a really long time. I mean, they used the same practical effects in Back to the Future. They used the same practical effects in all the Star Wars movies. Like, he really was creative and he did the best he could. But Clash of the Titans comes out a handful of years ago, a remake of Ray Harryhausen's, and the internet exploded anyway, but it was really poor. And it just goes to show that just because you have new technology, you should not muck with the legacy of something, and especially with someone who is, as we already defined, as much of a cult master as Ray Harryhausen. You're going to have a tough time selling your film.
Yeah, and I think the next big thing is monies. Just trying to get all that monies.
Get all that monies.
Making a cash grab at the box office. I mean, it happens constantly with sequels. But like the most recent being Ghostbusters, probably, as far as cash grab remakes, with the female Wonder Twins of comedy, Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy. But another one being Day the Earth Stood Still. Keanu Reeves, Keanu Reeves starred in it back in the early 2000s. And it was very shortly after, not early 2000s, it was like 2008. But it was, it's really funny about Keanu Reeves because he hits popularity like once every decade. So he hit this level of popularity again with the Matrix series, and all he was in like a handful of rom-coms and rom-drums.
He was in Hardball.
He was in Hardball. He had this real good thing going for him. And then somebody's like, you know what? Let's remake The Day the Earth Stood Still. This pretty well-known sci-fi end-of-the-world movie. Let's remake it with way too much CG. Let's put Keanu Reeves at the front. Literally, his face was the poster. Like, it's not about Keanu Reeves. It's about aliens, but his face is the poster. So that, like, perfect example of a remake going terribly, terribly wrong. It has terrible, terrible reviews. And then another one being Evil Dead. Evil Dead, recently, Ash vs. Evil Dead has a TV show now. There were whispers of it happening a few years ago, and it was decided by the powers that be that they were going to take this 1981 damn near perfect film, 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Great movie, cult classic, and they were gonna remake it as a straight horror film. And I don't remember who it was, but it was somebody dumb like Rob Zombie at the helm of this movie. And it's a straight up horror film. It's not Rob Zombie, but it's somebody. It's not. It is a well-known horror director.
Mr. Zombie, I respect your work.
I don't. Sorry. But it's the kind of thing where it's like you don't remake the Boondock Saints. You put out a really terrible sequel and learn your lesson, but you don't remake it. You don't remake Pulp Fiction. You don't remake The Usual Suspects. You don't remake The Godfather. Like, you don't remake these movies because they don't need to be remade yet.
Yeah.
And it was not only a remake, but it was a reimagining of a horror comedy, like slapstick kind of movie as a horror film, which grabbed a lot of people's attention But because it's a cult classic, and a lot of people that like that movie also like horror movies. Being a cult classic, it was a very obvious cash grab. So that's another terrible reason to do it.
Yeah, I think my least favorite are the next two, so I'm gonna take them both kind of at the same time.
Yeah, you are.
These are the reasons that I fall out of love with movies, like because I am such a cinephile. I like the old classic actors are so important to me.
Sure.
That unless you have somebody that can like amend their portrayal, you shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
And where that isn't maybe the Karate Kid, it totally is. And I'm not talking about Ralph Macchio. I'm talking about
Love you, Ralph
Pat
Macchio.
Noriyuki. Oh wait, Pat. It's his real name's Noriyuki.
Jaden.
Oh,
Smith.
Morita. Yeah, Pat Morita, whose real name is Noriyuki Morita. So one of the great American Asian actors of his time, and I don't think this is a discredit to Jackie Chan because I don't think he thinks he's better than Pat Morita. I think what we had somebody somewhere that thought Ralph Macchio could be Jaden Smith. Okay. Yeah, but what about But what about Pat Morita? And they were like, let's get Jackie Chan.
So that's how racism works.
Yeah, I don't think that the like upsell or the kind of like the change of hand or the sleight of hand there rather was with Jackie Chan. I think Jackie Chan, if you're going to remake Karate Kid, is a very sensible choice. He has been a huge part of the martial arts over the past 40 years. He's
right.
Gigantic. However, saying that you need to have Jaden Smith in a movie at this period in his career where he's becoming more popular, and it's obviously because he's becoming trendy that you're putting him in this movie, and then you're having to make decisions where you're like, well, let's replace Mr. Miyagi with Jackie Chan. Then we start to have a problem. And not to mention that, but also this whole modern times update thing. It's not bad to update to the modern times. It's not bad to have trendy actors. It's bad to be making movies so that you can have trendy actors update them to the modern times in this crappy script. Yep. And that's something that I think Karate Kid fell prey to. It was a similar story, kind of the single mom thing, but they moved to Japan, and it's like, okay, well, the stakes there, I don't understand. Like, why
is he karate?
Are there not any jobs for a single mom in the U.S.? Like, you gotta go to Japan, and then it was just this big mess of a script, and nothing worked together. And that brings us to this, which is kind of our counterpoint from the first section, which is
Labor of Love can be really, really bad.
That's right. Before we said Labor of Love can be good, but Labor of Loves can be really, really bad. Let's say you grew up in the 70s and 80s, and you really love that gun-toting android cop who gave everything he could, and maybe you had an uncle who was in the force, and maybe he lost something, maybe he lost a leg, maybe he got shot, and maybe that drove you to want to bring this immortal film icon back to the big screen, and maybe you wanted to put him in a jet black costume that made no sense, and you wanted to make the film so crazily updated
and give him a Tron bike.
Yeah, and difficult story-wise that nobody would talk about it for the next 20 years. Because that's what happened with RoboCop. Like, RoboCop is one of those movies. RoboCop is like Short Circuit. You know, it's like one of those old movies that, like, it's like Terminator, which Terminator keeps getting sequels for no reason. Actually, I know the reason. It's because they sell really well in China and Japan, and so they keep getting sequels.
Yep.
But in America, they don't sell well anymore. But RoboCop, it's not a sequel. It is a reboot remake. They saw what happened with Judge Dredd, and they were like, maybe we can do the same thing with RoboCop.
Mm-hmm.
And they found the one guy. They found the one guy.
Joel Kinnaman.
Like, I've been waiting. I've been waiting my whole life. My whole life to whatever. Direct the reboot of RoboCop. It's like, dude, that's totally unnecessary. You don't need it.
And I think it ties back into the modern times update is you have these movies, like you go back and watch RoboCop with Schwarzenegger. It's we in our current generation are past where RoboCop is, with the exception of actual RoboCop. But like some of the technological advances of the time period, we already have those things, and we have had those things for years. So I understand like wanting to update the movie so like the technology is a little bit more out of reach, kind of like with Total Recall. Total Recall with Schwarzenegger again takes place on Mars, which is weird. We don't have people on Mars yet. But a lot of the technology in Total Recall, the original, is the same, but instead they reboot it and they put this dome civilization on Mars, and there's flying cars and all this kind of stuff.
I want to make a quick correction. There was a typo on our sheet. It's supposed to say Peter Weller, not Schwarzenegger for RoboCop. That is my fault. Chris, keep going.
He just waved me down for that. But it goes back to updating movies for the sake of updating movies. Like you're making a remake not because the movie needs to be remade and the story needs to be retold, but you're remaking it because you watched RoboCop or Total Recall last weekend and you realize like, dude, we have phones in our watches. Like we have glasses that we can wear that take pictures and like record our entire day. We have like machines that make food, like ready to eat food for us. And you're like, we already have all this stuff. We need to remake it, make everything totally crazy. So it kind of goes back to remaking the movie for the sake of something other than three-dimensional character study, updated actors and perspectives.
That's a big one.
And furthering the historical value of the film. Like those three, I think, are the pivotal. And then on top of those, it's kind of like little breadcrumbs of tech advances and labor of love.
Yeah, and I think it's like you gotta build upon what's already there. If you're not building upon it, don't do it. And I think we nailed it. Except for all those times where we messed up. Right, Chris?
Yeah, all those times.
That's our topic.
So, I guess.
What do you guys think? What are your favorite remakes? What are your least favorite remakes? Let us know. Hit us up on BTC. We'll take you on Twitter. We'll take you on Instagram. We'll take you on the Snapchats. We'll take you on the Facebook. We'll take you on all that. Oh, on the fake book.
So let's talk about some jams then.
What's your jam?
Hey, Steven.
Hey, Chris.
What's your jam?
What's your jam?
I asked you first.
Dang it. So Christmas was just around the last corner.
Yep.
And I got some pretty cool stuff. I got a further expansion to Dominion. I'm a little late to that party, but I'm having a great time. I got Dominion Adventures. It's really fun.
The tiny box expansion.
No, that's the it's pretty good too. Yeah, the update for version 1, version 2, I also got that. And then my wife got the Oregon Trail card game.
Yes, you did.
Which was given to me by my lovely sister-in-law. Oh, it was you.
Well, it was both of us. It was from both of us.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. And it's actually pretty fun. We've only gotten to play it between the two of us. We haven't had like an Oregon Trail party yet. But the whole time we were like, I can see how this would be a riot, with a bunch of folks. So we're having a good time with those. We're also doing the Lemony Snicket thing. And I got a denim jacket for the first time.
Yeah, you did.
And I'm having a good time with that. I also just took a bunch of pictures, writing a bunch of music, So, yeah, man, I'm just trying to figure everything out. We used to have all this technology, man, and now it's just, it's crazy. Like the Romans, man, they had like aqueducts and stuff, and we lost that. Well, you weren't paying attention.
I was paying
just
attention.
Keep going. I was just gonna keep going until you looked me in the eyes again. That's all. Chris.
I was looking up a date.
Chris, what is your jam?
Well, my jam is something that I would like to talk about based on the date that I just had to look up on my phone. But for Christmas, I'm going to talk about games too. For Christmas, I got the last of the expansion packs that I needed for Legendary. So until, quote, early 17, end quote, when Marvel's Legendary Noir comes out, I have every card in the game, and that's super exciting for me. I really like the game. It's a lot of fun. On top of that, I am getting ready to DM my first Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Shut up. What?
So I have been like my jam by basically necessity. I have literally been reading through the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide like they are novels, just consuming data. I'm on my second time through the spellcasting chapter in the player's handbook, so I'm just trying to like learn all of this stuff. We played a handful of campaigns. I mean, you guys have heard it from Mr. Naughty List and Ginger Giant. We've played through a handful of campaigns already. We just finished up only part of the Curse of Strahd. We played through the Death House, which was a lot of fun. But we're getting ready to start the Keep on the Borderlands, which is a really, really, really old throwback from the 70s. Yeah. So I'm going to be DMing that, and we're going to kind of tighten up some screws since most of us are pretty new players. Mr. Naughty List and his wife, the Ginger Giant, and then our friend Josh, all brand new as of like the last year or so to D&D. So we're going to tighten up a lot of screws and kind of moving into more of a volley battle style, really nailing down the classes and races and spellcasting and all that kind of stuff. And like Mr. Naughty List's wife, Jackie, she had the mage hand in this last campaign, and she used it every action. Every action she had, she used the mage hand, which for those of you at all familiar with that know that there's a long rest that has to happen in there between uses, and you cannot long rest during battle without being the worst. So I've actually been taking advantage of like my spreadsheet wizardry and putting together some really sweet spreadsheets that kind of like calculate XP based on the amount of attack points that you do on a creature in battle, or based on whoever finds the orb or whatever. So it's really fun. But it's really intense.
Are you guys sticking to classic classes and races, or are you
For now,
letting them go crazy a little bit? Okay.
For now, we're gonna branch
it's a good
out.
time.
We're gonna branch out. I think we're gonna start opening up multi-classing
Nice.
next campaign. So this will
Are
be
you guys doing 3.5 or 4?
5.
You're doing 5? Get out!
Yeah, 5th edition.
I didn't know people played 5.
Yeah, so
I mean, I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of stuck in 15 years ago playing 3.5, but it's
yeah, so we're playing 5.
it's still good.
5e,
Okay.
but this next campaign, it's gonna be our first full-length campaign. So it's going to be like probably a couple months worth. It's a really small campaign, but we're on a every other week schedule right now. So
Sure.
yeah,
As do professionals do.
yeah. I already want to get back into the boots of an adventurer, because I
Yeah.
was really loving my Dragonborn Paladin.
Man, I miss my half doppelganger Archon. I miss him.
But yeah, that's my jam.
No, well, thank you, Chris. It really blesses my heart to know that you're a DM now. And you got to check out Shadowrun if you haven't checked out Shadowrun. It's like the cyberpunk Dungeons and Dragons. It's really cool. Yeah, that face exactly. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in and tuning up to Between the Cons. Make sure you hit us up on all of our social media stuff. We have Patreon. It's like Kickstarter, but monthly. If 1 out of every 20 people who listen to the podcast gave us $1 a month, we would be fully funded. And, you know, we do our best by ourselves, but we look to you a little bit. Tune in with Satchel. It's Podcast Player for those of you who don't have podcasts or Android podcasts, where you can also tip and tweet while listening. So tweet at us during the show. And make sure you check us out on Amazon. Because that's a thing you can do.
No, it's not. We have a search bar at the bottom of our website, betweenthecons.com, where you can search Amazon through our site. You type in what you're looking for, you hit search, it actually bounces you out to the Amazon site with our affiliate ID embedded in the URL. So we get a little kickback off of your purchases. So no change for you there, except you just go to our website to search Amazon, which is kind of weird, but it's totally legal and it's not weird and creepy and stalkerish, which kind of made it more creepy and stalkerish. So check out our website, betweenthecons.com, stream on there, check out our social media sites, hit us up through our contact page, and then make sure you guys also vote, because we do that now. You vote for what we talk about on Topic Thunder. Today we talked about
that's right.
the remakes, and that was you guys deciding that.
We could have talked about CGI. We could have talked about what feet look better.
What? Okay.
You know, what feet look better?
Yeah, that was one. But yeah, if you want to suggest a topic, just drop us a line. Go to betweenthecons.com/contact. We have a form that you can fill out, and then make sure you guys tune in on Thursday, because Tori and I are going to be back, and we are going to have a fun-filled Topic Thunder episode for you on a Thursday, which is crazy.
Ooh! Oh, it's a Valentine's Day episode.
Sure.
You guys
Anyways,
need a kiss?
you guys tune in on
Kiss.
Thursday. We will be back.
Kiss him.
But you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you then.
Kiss him. I'm not going to put that. It would be really incendiary for no reason.